up is takes officers off the job, the home.
Okay.
That's rare. That's a good question. Let's ask him more.
All right, so my name is Kurt Berner. I'm from the Samuels Group. We're a construction management firm that the county has hired to direct them through the process of consideration of the new deal. I want to start with some introductions here briefly, kind of go around the room.
Kyle Cano with Venture Architects. We're working with the Samuels Group. We're on the architectural side to the construction manager.
Corey White with Venture Architects.
Phil Grassman, Chief Deputy for the Sheriff's Office.
Bill Turner, Jail Administrator, Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Jeff Wall.
Ashley,
Just stand in there.
So our goal tonight is to give you some information about the consideration for the jail that's being considered. So got some slides here. I'm going to do my best to get through them in a decent amount of time so I don't keep you here too late, and then at the end we'll have questions and answers. I always like to start these meetings and just be appreciative of the country in which we live in, that we can actually talk about these things, address them, get feedback from you as the citizens, and I would just ask that as we go through this meeting that we keep things respectful in regards to comments and things that are done as we go through the course of the meeting. So appreciate that in advance. So the outline that we have here, just want to talk about introductions. We're going to talk about how we got to where we are, talk about the need, why are we even talking about a new jail. We're going to talk briefly about the proposed solution and tax impact, and then there is a contact opportunity for you to gain some more knowledge on the website. Most of things will give you some links associated with that. So how did we get here? This is kind of a timeline, which I know you probably can't read because of the screen, but essentially the county had hired an organization to go and do a facility analysis of all of the county facilities and talk about the issues that needed to be addressed on your facility, and then ask them to prioritize what's the need within town. The jail came to the top in regards to the need to tie back to. We then move forward with an RFP process where they vetted different firms to go to help them look at design, look at options, to address the jail's need. That's how we get there.
Yeah.
We won't tell apart.
Where's George?
You guys want chairs back here?
Go ahead, Nancy.
There's 5 more up front. Who wants to sit?
Five up
5
front,
more up
2
front.
here.
5 empty up front if you guys want to
Okay.
sit.
So the RFP process, request for proposal, was done by the county through a selection interview process. Our two firms were selected and hired by the county, and then we started to dive into evaluation of the jail and where some possible solutions. So that's how we got to where we are today.
Have at it, there's room up front.
The need, a little bit about your jail. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the jail, where it's located, but I do. Downtown Ladysmith is nearly 40 years old. It'll have a birthday next year. That'll get it to 40 years old. It is a linear jail, and I got a slide here that's going to explain to you what a linear jail is. There's linear jails and there's podular jails. I'm going to talk a little bit about the staffing efficiencies and the difference between those jails through the presentation today. Your jail has limited receiving cells. What a receiving cell is essentially the first cell that an individual is placed in upon them being booked into the jail. You only have 2 of them, and we'll talk about why that's important as we go through the presentation as well. There's an unsafe flow from your sally port to the booking area, so your jail is up on the 2nd floor, and an individual that comes into the jail from an arresting officer in that squad car then has to be taken out of the squad through a narrow corridor to an elevator, up the elevator, and then into the booking area. Individuals that are under arrest at that point aren't always thrilled about that, so it really poses a safety issue for not only the officer, but for the individual who's under arrest. You've got water infiltrations through portions of the building. I'm sure you've probably heard the discussion of classification. Because of your limited cell blocks, it's difficult for your jail staff to properly classify inmates, and we'll get into classification in a much deeper discussion further on in the presentation. And then obviously there's other inadequate spaces that are for storage for medical and the programming side of it. This gives you a diagram or a representation of what a linear jail is. And a linear jail means that it's basically these cells are in a line. So in this concept here, this vehicle sally port where the squad would then bring the individual who's under arrest, they would then come into this booking area. These are those receiving cells that I talked to you about before. These individuals are then changed over, their property storage goes in here, and then they go back into what is called the housing unit. These areas that are starred represent the posts. A post is a place where staff have to actually be there to 24/7 to be able to deal with the oversight of those inmates that are there. We're going to talk about the efficiencies of a podular jail versus a linear jail. In this concept right here, this would be what we would call master control. This individual here would be able to control all the doors and all of the intercoms and everything that happens in the function of that jail from this control. These individuals here do not have a direct line of sight because of the linear direction that's there. These open into these day rooms that are here, and the line of sight from this individual is non-existent. And I'll explain that when we get into the pod. So this star over here would be a rover. This would be an officer that would have to come through here and do bed checks periodically to make sure that these individuals are still safe, secure throughout the course of that day that they're in that jail. This is labor intensive in regards to linear. We're going to talk about some of the safety components that are in your linear jail, but linear jails in general pose a much higher safety concern in regards to not having a line of sight. You aren't able to see things that are happening in that day room, in that cell, on a moment's notice. This individual right here is only looking at cameras. And then you have these staff that are roving throughout this side that's here, and it's confined to just this screen and be able to see the camera and the views of what's happening in those cells and cell blocks. A pod design, and this is what is the proposed solution, really the pod is essentially a circle. So in this master control area, or this post that's here, this individual here, these walls look like they're solid. They're not. These are glass fronts. In front of each one of these would be glass, and then in front of all of these cells would be glass. So this individual here that's there at the officer station can see into these day rooms and into each one of these cells from a line of sight component. Under this configuration, there would be a vehicle sally port. There would then be a pre-booking, which you don't have a pre-book. It's non-existent because you don't have the space within your jail to be able to provide that. You've got the booking area, which would obviously be a booking station. There has to be an officer here when there's someone in the booking area. Property storage, and then they would come into the pod. If you see each one of these areas that are broken down, this is a cell block. This would be a cell block. This would be a cell block. Each one of them would be cell blocks. These individuals that are in each one of these cell blocks have to meet the same classification. You can't mix classifications. And we'll talk about that when we get to classifications of what that means. But this gives you much better opportunity in regards to being able to deal with your population and manage and control the classifications while they're there. This model represents the model of what you would have on this proposed solution, where an individual that's inside of this housing unit would never leave a secure corridor. There would be a secure corridor connection from the housing right over into a holding cell or holding cells at the courtroom space. So that inmate is then brought from housing over into a court holding cell, and then when they have to come in to be seen in court, they then enter into the courtroom. There's no crossing of the public, there's no crossing in regards to the line of traffic that's there, and that's the model that is shown in the proposed solution. So, you see, one of the things that you'll notice this, and I'm going to reference this multiple times, this is a 3-post design. And I want you to understand what that post is. Those 3 posts have to be staffed 24/7. When you start to talk about adding a post, every time you add a post to an operational, you're adding $500,000 of operating cost to your jail. So when you start to look at how do you design a jail, how do you run a jail, how do you policy a jail, you have to make sure that your posts are as limited as possible. This is the most efficient design, is a 3-post design. And we'll talk about that as we move forward into how we got to where we are. Yep.
On that back slide, I think one thing, while this is up, it may be worth just mentioning that each of these cells that are in here, the size of that is dictated by state statute, so that can't really be reduced any further. And then the number of cells you have in here, or the number of inmates you could have in that entire block, that pod, that then dictates the size of that day room. So what you see here is based off of state statute minimums. And on the slide before, that also would indicate that these are non-compliant with what the current state statutes are. So any kind of redevelopment of and Kurt will go into it in the next slide, but this, when you start to get it up to code, when you start to renovate an existing jail, these all need to be compliant with those state statutes, and those cells need to be bigger, and the day rooms also need to be bigger as well.
Good point. So one of the questions that has come up at county board meetings is, can we reuse the existing? Can we renovate existing? Anything can be renovated, but does it make sense in the long haul in regards to the investment, and how does it function for you, the county? What Kyle just referenced, this is the configuration. We don't show you floor plans on purpose for security purposes. We don't want the floor plan of the jail out there for public consumption. So essentially, you can see this is your linear jail. Got a hallway down it, and you've got jail on either side. You have a linear jail. The spaces that are in red are areas that would be renovation of those cells that you currently have, okay? The cells that you currently have do not meet the DOC sizing in regards to what that looks like. So your 52-bed jail, if we were to gut that entire floor and be able to renovate where we are, your 52-bed jail would be reduced by 14 beds. So you would be then down to 38 beds after you've done that renovation. Things that complicate this matter is that in order to accomplish a renovation, that all of your inmates would have to be housed out of county during construction, which is a cost to the project, and the floors below and above you would have to be displaced for structural renovations that would have to be done on the building. All complicating matters in regards to why renovation doesn't make sense in regards to where we're looking. Now, if you look at the jail study or the master plan that was reviewed, Wald actually showed that they would keep this functioning and then build another linear jail over on this other side. Demoing the south wing of your campus, which you'd have the cost of the demo, and then you have to build or find space for those departments that would be displaced. And additionally, you'd be adding another linear jail. By adding another linear jail, you would add another 3 posts right here, because you can't tie those in because of you have to add the staff because of the design that's there. Remember I said the pod was 3 posts? This linear jail would be a minimum of 3 posts. It would cost you operationally another $1.5 million annually if you decided to build another linear addition over on this other side. With those considerations, that's how we got to the options that we started to explore. So there are multiple options that were explored. The county had selected an ad hoc committee. Ad hoc committee members here, mind raising your hand if who was part of that? All right, thank you very much. Part of what that ad hoc committee was asking us questions that you as taxpayers probably have on your mind right now. And they tagged us with a lot of them. How about this, and how about that, and how about this, and how about that, right? Which is good, that's part of the discussion. We actually took them on tour to be able to see some pod jails. They toured your jail, understand the difference between the two of them. The first design that we proposed was essentially taking this podular design, or this housing. This is the existing courthouse right here, this is Minor Ave, and parking this housing right next to the existing courthouse. The reason for that is that in order to keep your costs down, we want to have your renovations minimal. I just talked to you about what the renovation looks like and how we're hamstrung in regards to being able to do that. But we do want to reutilize a connection between this jail and the courts. Your courts actually sit over here on the campus right about here. So we want to keep this as close as possible so that the distance from housing to courts is as short as possible, but we want to do it with as minimal amount of renovation as possible. So this is essentially your housing, your booking is down in here, Sallyport, and jail support is over here. Jail support is kitchen, laundry, all those that are tied back into this jail. This concept would be the 3-post efficient design. This concept was presented to the city, not in an official submittal, but it was through a presentation to the city, and it was not well received in regards to closing of Minor Ave. So we moved on to other ideas. So the other ideas were, how much of that can we keep the program the same, not reducing your scope? And what I mean by that is not reducing the square footage. So Kyle talked about the DOC state guidelines dictate the programming or the size of each cell block, the square footage is predetermined. Without reducing the bed count, how much can fit on this block without getting into the streets? This is a representation on the east side, which is keeping the same size housing, all of the support with a different configuration. We actually would have to demo a portion of the existing building in order for it to fit, and it still didn't fit. It was covering up 4th Street. The next option was looking at this configuration. It was knocking down more of your building, so it's kind of going back to that walled model that was tied into that. Was knocking down more of your building, and we were actually encroaching on setbacks on all of these components to be able to get this in here, as well as all the demolition and displacement of all of the programs and spaces that are in your south, I'll call it the south annex of your current courthouse.
Also with that design, there was limited as far as the cell count, so the bed count actually was reduced with that design.
This one here is kind of just a different configuration of being able to change where the flow comes in. So the Sally port was up on this end and ended up coming back in through pre-book and booking to get into this flow. This connection, the secure corridor here would get us into courts. Courts is up here, being able to get back into the holding cells. This one here was parking it without taking any demo. This was eliminating any demo and see where it would fit. It would actually come back into 4th Street.
And that was a 3-story design.
3-story. Yeah, that's a good point. 3-story design, as soon as you stack the design, right now we've got up that pod is 2 floors of cells. There's a lower floor and an upper floor, but that master control station is elevated about 6 feet high, so that when they're in that officer station, they're able to see through those windows to see the upper floor and the lower floor. This would then take that and stack it up 1 level higher, and the booking would be tied underneath there. As soon as you start to stack the operation of a jail, you start to affect its efficiency because you're depending on elevators, you're adding staff time in regards to have a response time for those rovers to come through and do their self-check. You would then have to add 1 or 2 additional staff posts at $500,000 a piece. Those staff posts and all those operational pieces, those cannot be borrowed for. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, is that there's a difference between what your operating budget is and what you do for your debt service in regards to what the county borrows and how do they pay that back. You can't borrow for operations, and that's something that we'll talk about as we get along a little further.
And one more thing to Kurt's point, I think it was the slide back, that was encroaching on 4th Street. When our team had made the initial presentation to the Ladysmith City Council, one of the takeaways we had leaving there was no closing Minor Avenue, but you could potentially propose closing some other streets.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't that we needed to close the street or that we wanted to close the street. It was just to keep that footprint of what we had together to make that work. That was how that was working out. So and I think everyone here will say the ad hoc committee did a fantastic job of pushing our team to look at different options. No, let's not try to close 4th Street. How can we do this elsewhere? That's where the 3-story option comes in. That's where taking up every possible square foot of parking lot, even though that was not looking like a good idea at the time, we still went through and investigated that. So that's part of this whole process of what we were looking at.
This one here, another configuration. This one was again additional demolition along the south side. This was a different configuration to be able to deal with how do we get this flow, because the flow on this back one was just not real smooth. This was a different flow component, but then it tied back into additional demolition and the rating of those 2 buildings.
And some of these last 2, were, the direction was not to close any of the streets, keep it on the existing site, but then as you see, we're demoing additional buildings.
And this is actually the current proposed solution. So you will see that Minor stays open, 4th stays open, and we're utilizing the county-owned property. There currently is a retail store here that would be removed. and then you would end up seeing the housing would be parked on the north end of this block, and then the Sally Port would be on this end, jail support, intake and booking, so the flow would be, arrest comes in here, comes through the booking process, gets then into housing, individuals stay in housing, when they go to court, they come through the secure corridor, 2 courts, and then back to housing. Now, there's a few things that come into play here. When we were talking about putting something up on the northeast, you have to take into consideration some long-range master plans for the campus, right? Now, understanding that the life expectancy of this campus is that you will have to replace portions of it somewhere in the future. And many of the counties that I work with, they don't do a great job of that long-range planning, meaning that when the building is built, it's set, it's functioning, it's great, but don't understand that those buildings have a life expectancy. You've got to have a game plan in regards to what's the next step, right? Now, if you look at what came back from your master plan, the priorities for your county from that master plan was jail number 1 and highway shop number 2. Now, you got to understand that there's going to be a number 3 sometime down the road, which may very well be this courthouse. So, as you understand, we're gonna consume parking on this piece here, right, when we build this jail. The discussion is that when this takes place, you have to have the ability to be able to build a connection so you don't lose this connectivity. So, the future may be that the county has to look at acquisition of this property to be able to flip this block. They may be able to flip this over to here with the connection from the jail to get to this courts, but it gives them opportunity to be able to make those changes and keep the efficiency of that flow there on that campus, rather than parking everything up here. This gives you options in regards to being able to get to that future plan or the master plan. All of these options that we looked at ranged anywhere from $36 million up to $48.5 million. This option currently right now is at $38.5 million. What the ad hoc was giving us in regards to these explanations is, how can we reduce costs? How can we reduce costs? And reduce cost, first cost for bricks and mortar, but also the overall operating cost. This option is the one that has come to that position in regards to the selection. It still gives us the ability to be able to have this connection point and the skywalk that's tied into that without closing it. But it kind of goes back to the model where we're building this and doing minimal renovation on this campus. So, with that said, the proposed, or we're going to get into the need here of the classification. So, classification is a very confusing topic for individuals that don't deal with jail every day. And what that boils down to is that when an individual is taken into custody and they are arrested, the jail staff then have to properly classify them. And what that means is they've got to do some history on that individual. Who do we have here, right? And what that means is, what's their criminal background? What are they in there for? Who else is in the jail at the time? A lot of those objective classifications start to fall into this tree in regards for them to be able to determine where do they park them? Where do they stay? And the DOC in 2014 changed the classification requirements. Remember, your jail was built in 1985, and now we're in 2014, and the DOC changed the classification. They didn't change the classification to make it difficult on counties. They changed the classification because they kept dealing with incidents in the jails in regards to individuals being housed together, and there were incidents in that location. Whether it was a fight that broke out, whether there was abuse, whether there was threatenings that were taking place, all these things continued to compound to the point where this population that your jail staff deal with today is not what it was 20 and 30 years ago. So the classification process is done so that you're separating these individuals that are in there so that these incidents start to come onto the decline. The classification side talks about these were what they were 20, 30 years ago. You had male and female, you had minimum, medium, and maximum. Now we still take into consideration that as a starting point, but now you start to get into other subclassification, the co-conspirator. That is a real big one, okay? So let's say that Kyle and I, we're buddies and we're a criminal, right? And we both get arrested, right? Because we are in that same event, we may both be males, we may both be in a medium or a minimum, whatever that is. We cannot be housed together because of our co-conspirator piece. I'm whispering in his ear, hey, here's what you're gonna tell him, here's what I'm gonna tell him. So obviously you have to separate them, okay? Here's what challenges your jail staff, is that when we go back to this model on, let me get back to that floor plan. Look at this right here. If this is cell block that Kyle sits in, there are 5 beds right there. If there is no one else in your jail population that matches Kyle's classification, you have one individual that is consuming 5 beds in your jail. You can't mix classifications. So what you are seeing is that the design that's happening, you see up on this side, we have a day room and they may have 2, they may have 1 cell. It's breaking that circle up into smaller segments so that you have more classifications to be able to manage. Because what's happening in jails that are vintage your jail and others throughout the state is that they may only have 6, 8, or 10 of those. And in those 6, 8, or 10 of them, you may have a 50, 60, or 70 bed jail, but effectively, you will never be able to house 50, 60, or 70 people because you can't mix the classifications. And more than likely, you'll have one individual that will account for 5, 6, or 8 beds, and the rating capacity of your jail just went down. It's happening all over. You're not the only ones, but that gives you a representation of what's happening with classifications and how they're being mixed. Now, there is a big, I guess, contention as I present this to the group of, why can't we just mix all of them together? You got individuals that may have medical health issues. If somebody comes in, they have an airborne disease, you can't put them with the next individual. COVID taught us this separation issue. Tuberculosis was before that. There's other airborne illnesses that require you to be able to separate so there isn't cross-contamination between those individuals. We will have special needs beds that are in there under a negative pressure, meaning that if I go into that room, the negative pressure in that room is then taking that airborne disease and then getting it outside of that cell block or the jail that's tied into that. Mental health, behavior health, separation, gangs affiliation, anything that's tied back into high profile. Suicide watch is a big thing. And sad to say, comments that I get from most public about suicide watch is not the best comments, right? The reality about suicide watch is that if you had a loved one that made a mistake and they're down in the dumps, you want them to get fixed up and get out of there. You don't want them to take their life right there. So when it's somebody else and it's not your family, I hear the comments from people that say, hey, you just saved us some money. I hate to tell you that, but I hear that. And it's saddening. It's very saddening. But suicide watch is a huge piece of this puzzle. And we'll get into the discussion of suicide watch and why your jail has issues tied to that here in a minute. Disciplinary or administrative confinement, what that means is you may get somebody who's combative, who's raising a ruckus. In that general population, all it takes is one individual to really get hot-headed and start raising a ruckus. And all of a sudden, you've watched the mob mentality before. You start to get this energy, which is in that housing unit, and it starts to become a huge safety concern. You've got to be able to pull them out of that general population. And when we talked about the receiving cells that we're booking, you got to be able to take and separate them so that you can manage that population depending on what's happening in the jail. Juvenile, for obvious reasons, risk of being victimized, and then the bottom with all the letters, right? You all know what that stands for. And if anything comes into a point of contention, that's probably the biggest thing in society, right? I don't know where you all stand on all of that, and quite frankly, it doesn't matter. The reality is that your county has to deal with that. Whether you agree with it or whether you don't, you have to deal with it so that there's proper separation. And that's a component that's tied into this, and it's not the biggest piece. Every time I hear people say, well, that's what's pushing it over the top, it's not. What's pushing it over the top is that the crime and the reason that those individuals are in there is different now than it was 20, 30 years ago. And I think you can all agree, it's not getting any better. So classification is unique. It's always changing. I want to stress that to you, fluid and always changing. What that means is when the officers bring somebody in, we've just changed the climate of that population. We don't know what's walking in the door. And until you classify them and you start to identify where they need to be, that is always going to be changing. Okay? Okay, you have a comment?
One step back on that. And I think the big part too is the responsibility of
Yeah.
managing that by the jail administration staff is all of these people are under the care of the sheriff's office. And if anything happens as a part of that, the liability of that falls on the county. So we all, as county residents of some county or another, rely on the jail staff and the sheriff's office to make sure that this is happening in a very well-organized fashion as the DOC requires us. Because if any one of these people are threatened or something does happen, that liability does fall on the county.
Good point.
So,
Harmed or injured, when he talks about liability, we're talking about lawsuits. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about that individual is harmed, injured, whatever the case may be, there's a potential lawsuit and that comes back to the county of liability. Good point. Okay, these are some existing conditions. Now you got water infiltration throughout the building. You've got a generator that isn't properly exhausted. You've got light fixtures that have water leaking into them. The next one is this holding cell. I do want to stress this here. These are the bars, and I make it as kind of lighthearted, but these bars to most of the population, because they may have seen a jail from the Andy Griffith show, and that's what a jail was about, those are a big no-no. When you talk about suicide, anything that's a tie-off point has to be eliminated. An individual can't take a sheet, wrap around that. When you go in and you start looking at how jails are constructed nowadays, all of the hinges on the doors are all beveled so that nothing can hang on them. The curtains that are in there are tear-away curtains that they hang there, that if somebody was putting pressure on them, they tear away. There is extensive measures taken so that you can minimize the opportunity for an individual to commit suicide. You've got them all over on your campus. These are your 2 receiving cells. I'm going to tell you right now, based on the population that you would have, you need to have those that you should have multiple receiving cells, not 1 or 2. What that means is that when that fresh arrest comes in, they've got to have a cell to be able to put them in, and those individuals have to be monitored for 24 to 48 hours before they can be properly classified to be put into housing. Because you don't have enough receiving cells and you need a home for them, people are being moved into GP quicker than what they should be. That's a management tool. And when I talk to you about them taking them out of general population, those receiving cells are used for that. This is where you don't have booking, it's just tight space. Again, this is the holding cell, again, unsafe measures in regards to the bars that are there. You can just see the confinement and the space that's tied into that. And I want you to think about that. If we're dealing with an individual and Phil has got to get me through this jail, and I decide that I just don't want to go, and I'm a lot bigger than what I am right now, and I could take Phil, which I can't right now, but if I was a lot bigger, I could flip him around inside of there and cause damage and harm. And throughout the state of Wisconsin, we have many events where that happens, where we have jailers that are injured because you don't have the space for them to be able to deal with the wrestling matches that happen inside of the jail. This is that linear jail. This is a sight line of what you're going to see when you look down from master control. You do not see into the cells. This here is the Sallyport elevator. This narrow elevator comes from the squad, and the elevator door is on the back side here. This is your dispatch security door. Your dispatch center, which couples as your master control, does not have a secure vestibule. There's one door. Typically the design is, if I want to get into that secure vestibule, I'm going to open a door, and before I get led into the next door, that gets locked so that no one can get into that space. All it takes is for that door to be open. If I have an inmate right next to dispatch, I'm in the controls of everything that's happening in the county. Crack the door. And that's the dispatch center here that I showed you on this side. Inmate changeover, lack of space, it's not compliant to the DOC. You can see how narrow this is in between the lockers. The medical room, there is not proper space in the medical room. You're supposed to have a separate exam room. You're supposed to have a separate nurse's office, and you're supposed to have a separate location for all medication so that it's under 3 different locks so that that is not exposed to the inmates. You don't have any of that. And then there's an emergency call button that effectively cannot be reached by the inmates. It's not an emergency call button because you can't get to it. So there's many things that happen with your jail in regards to the code and the issues that are tied back in to the existing conditions. Entrance to courtroom, this is actually a lock so that you have to be able to unlock this door while you have your back turned to the inmate. This one holding cell is not DOC compliant, so it's not able to be used right now. You're only using one. And then obviously this desk area in regards to those inmates have access to that. That should be behind glass so that when they're walking down there, inmates can't just take and knock things off of shelves or grab them. There should be a separation, and you don't have that situation in jail. So the proposed solution. Again, you saw the presentation in regards to kind of a site plan component. This is a 3D rendering. I'm going to show you the video here in a minute that talks about it. But what this does is it's going to modernize your antiquated building systems, the systems that we talked about in regards to master control to be able to function, all the door controls, the intercoms, the cameras that were tied into that. Inmate classification will be able to be met in regards to having many more cell blocks that are tied into that, safer for the staff. Years of opportunity for expansion, meaning that that's why it's been located where it is, so that you have an opportunity to move it, the additions or renovations, and it is on county-owned property, meaning that there wouldn't have to be acquisition property. So I don't know how loud my speaker is going to be, but we do have a video here to play. Just take a minute.
The members of the Rusk County Board are encouraging your feedback regarding the proposed Rusk County Jail. The 2-story jail addition looks to utilize the existing Rusk County-owned property across Minor Avenue to the south of the current law enforcement center. The 2 facilities will be connected by a skywalk to create a link between jail and the courts. The Rusk County Jail will include a 2-level housing pod, along with related support services. At the southernmost end of the block is a secure sally port and building services loading dock. Keeping all of these jail-related functions in one building addresses the current operational and staffing inefficiencies in the current jail facility. By constructing the Rusk County Jail in this location, it allows future generations greater options to address replacement, improvements, or updates to the current county courthouse. The design for the new jail is straightforward, yet weaves in a contemporary style that remains contextual with its neighbors. Rusk County Sheriff's personnel, County Board Supervisors, and County Administration all provided insights on the design. You can reference the website ruskcountyjailproject.com, all one word, to understand more why this project is essential for the growth and revitalization of our communities. Additionally, a green space across 3rd Street can serve as a community square, accommodating festivals, concerts, and special events for bringing the community together. Please consider making the time to join one of the community listening sessions to learn more about the project and ask any questions that you may have. Thank you.
So there's some details on that video that, again, we are only in a very conceptual level, that if the project is approved, colors of that facility, if they decide to do the veterans flags would be a decision. This is just some suggestions. The park across the street is not needed for the jail, but it is talking about how do you how you deal with that connection. So those are all things that will come before the county board if they want it included in the project or not. But what that does represent to you, there's some things that you probably didn't pick up on that jail. Whenever you put a jail inside of a city, there's always questions about the windows. Are we gonna see inmates peeking out the windows? Are they gonna see in my windows? Around that housing unit and around that skywalk, you saw no windows. But we are still required by DOC to have daylight into that space. All that daylight is given through skylights. So all of the configuration and the way that's put together is through skylights. So there's no need to be able to deal with the windows around that structure that's there. It is connected to the existing building, so they're looking at some of the finishes. Right now, we are planning that it is a precast building, precast concrete building. What's happened in the markets, and I'll talk a little bit about cost here in a little bit. What's happened in the markets is that the masonry or CMU block design that's been done for many, many years, you have a reduced workforce of that skilled trade, which is actually driving up costs. So the fabrication of precast and being able to have that precast panels fabricated somewhere other than here and trucked in, and we start to have the erection of that building, it shortens up the duration of the project. It takes away a little bit of that, just kind of the historic nature of seeing the brick, but they look at different finishes of how do we make that precast. So the precast is cost effective, it's secure, and it has a great lifespan in regards to what that building would look like. So we're proposing that it would be precast for the building. All right, tax impact, probably what you're all here for. So the tax impact has been provided by Baird. They're the financial advisors for the county. And how we got to the tax impact is we told them this is a $38.5 million job. That's the bricks and mortar, that's all of the professional fees, that's everything that's tied in with building this jail. And then what they do is they then come back with options in regards to how do you go about financing this project. And part of what they break out is what's the tax impact per $100,000. So if they borrow $38.5 million, and they pay that debt back over 20 years, they're proposing between a 4 to 4.5% interest rate. And the interest rate for general obligation bonds, meaning the government borrows those bonds, is always significantly less than you and I when we go and borrow money, because for some reason the government has money and the private sector doesn't. I'm joking. The investors then look at it as a safer investment, and the interest rates are lower. So they're projecting between a 4 and a 4.5%. Over the course of that repayment, the max mill rate impact is 73 cents per $100,000 evaluation. So if your house is a $100,000 evaluation, we'll get to question. Yep.
You said 73 cents.
Yep. 73 cents for every, 73 cents for every $1,000 evaluation. Yep. You were all gonna say yes. Sorry. Thank you, Tom. 73 cents for every $1,000 evaluation, which equates to $73 per year for every $100,000 evaluation. Okay. Now that's a max tax impact. And on this next screen, which again, it's hard for you to see that, you'll see where that max impact comes in. It's kind of level, and then it starts to die off in regards to how that configuration looks. You start to see that impact starts to come back down, okay? Now, there's multiple ways that this borrowing can take place that would come before the county board that they would vote on. There's discussions about you borrow some 1 year, the next year, and the third year, you borrow it all at one time. I can tell you over the course of the last 3 years, because there was historically low interest rates, this county's borrowed it all at one time, and then they were able to reinvest that and have some interest income to be able to offset some costs. It's still in that market right now, but it's not where it was. Anyways, this other side, for that there may be some confusion, is what's this 61 cents over here? The 61 cents represents, county still has capacity. It's one of those things where how much money can the county borrow? The county still has capacity to borrow for their CIP projects over the course of the foreseeable future, because there's consideration about doing capital improvement projects over every other year of $3 million borrowings. Now, those all would take county board approval, but what that represents is that if those CIP projects are borrowed every other year, you would see an impact of 61 cents per thousand, right? But that would have to be the discussion and that you have the ability to borrow additional funds. It's not that you've borrowed all the money that you can borrow, you still have capacity to be able to deal with other needs that you have within the county. So, with that said, the way they break it down, it's $73 per year per $100,000 evaluation, or for that $100,000 evaluation, it's $6.08 a month for your tax impact. This construction inflation, this came up in regards to kind of a topic, because a lot of times what I get from the county is, can we get one more year out of our building? Can we get one more year? And pretty soon, one more year becomes 10 years, and pretty soon it becomes 20 years. I think it's important because as we talk about construction inflation, historically, commercial construction inflation averages anywhere between 5 to 10%. Okay, the last 3 years, that number wasn't even in the realm. It's just crazy how high construction went up, right? But if you consider 5 to 10% every year that you don't do it, that's what the cost of what the construction is going to increase. If you're borrowing at 4 or 4.5%, you're ahead of the game from the borrowing perspective, and that's what happens for many of the counties that I've worked with, that as they start to evaluate that, is that they're never going to get ahead of the game by delaying it. And this is just a representation that 5% inflation in 10 years, this job would cost you $59.7 million. All the way up to 8%, if you waited 10 years, it's going to cost you $76.9 million. That's just on construction inflation. Now, on top of that, you would have to pay interest. I forgot to talk to you about the interest. On this side, it's been questioned at the county board. Principal and interest on a $38.5 million borrowing comes to a total repayment of $61.8 million. Now, that's always a question, right? How much is this costing us? It's not costing us 38, it's costing us 61. You're right. But it's also the same element that when you're going to purchase a home, unless you have the cash to lay down to purchase the home, you have to borrow to be able to have that payment over that duration. And I can tell you that counties historically don't generate the revenue or have the surplus in their revenue to be able to put this amount of cash in the bank. If they said, let's wait 10 years and let's just come up with $59 million, it never happens. So that's why when you see counties have to borrow for these projects, it's because of the need and it's because of the connection in regards to construction inflation and the interest rates that are there. All right, learn more. We do have a website, ruskcountyjailproject.com. You do have to put that in the address bar. If you put that into Google, you're not going to find us. You have to put it into the address bar, and then it will take you directly to the website. The website will have all of the data that's tied back into the jail study. It will have information that's tied back into jail inspection reports. So I would encourage you to take a look at that information. And then we'll open it up for questions and answers. Yes?
Can you go back to slide 18?
Sure.
So I've been on your website and I've seen your little video and it does not accurately depict that block that you want to put the jail on. There are 4 homes behind there and your little video does not show them. So those 4 homes are going to be impacted financially from that jail by depreciating their home value.
Sure.
So what is going to be done about that?
Well, and this discussion comes up, right?
Yes.
Wherever you're going to park for the jail, the neighboring person can say, you're affecting what my property is worth, right? Wherever it is. So I could ask you and say, okay, I am in agreement with you. Tell me where you want to put it. And you give me an answer, and it's somewhere else in the county, that individual can say, it's affecting my property as well.
But it's gonna be depreciated to the point where we won't even be able to sell it for fair market value.
So I can't disagree, or I can't agree with you on that, because it's you don't know the answer to that, in reality of what that looks like, because right now, those properties are within a stone's throw of the existing jail. If we were taking this jail and placing it in a neighborhood where the jail was nowhere around,
My mom
I can
doesn't
see the
look out her
position.
kitchen window and see a huge building next to her, that's a jail.
Sure.
And the other part of that is you said future expansion, and you pointed to that block. How many years down the road are you looking at?
I don't know. I'm telling you that the consideration has to be that they can get there. County doesn't have to make that decision, right?
So what are those homeowners supposed to do about putting more money into their homes to maintain it?
You're right.
what
I
are we supposed to do?
understand your concern. It's a fair concern, but you have to ask yourself, where in the county do you wanna place it where it won't affect the neighbor?
I
Fair?
need answers.
Fair?
And I went to your website, put out the answers, no response back.
Oh, actually, we did respond. We
Yeah,
didn't give you
but
that
did
answer,
not- you
but we
did
gave you
not
all the other
respond-
answers.
You did not respond to about the depreciation of the home. So where do we get those answers?
I don't know that there is an answer for you about that depreciation will be. We're gonna take it to the board so that they understand your concern, and then we'll let them take that into consideration when they make their decision. Oh, we don't know. That's what this is
Well, I
about.
asked another question on there and I didn't get another response. you
What was
know.
that?
How many people here would be willing to be living next to that jail?
Right.
And nobody can respond.
And what's
to that.
difficult is you're asking questions that are almost impossible to answer,
I know,
right?
but
So
I have
it's,
a 90-year-old mother I need to get answers to.
understand
I
it.
understand there's a need for a jail, but I need answers. So I know how to take care of my mother.
Just, I want you to put yourself in the position of the county board member, is that if the jail is needed, where would it go where it wouldn't affect the neighbor? I think it's a
Out of
fair
town.
question. So out of town, there's still properties that would be affected by it.
What about the copper mine? That one.
Understand. Other questions, comments?
You said, the cost of the project was 38 million, but that's not true, is it? What is the total cost?
38.5 million.
What's the financing cost on that?
Were you here?
61 million, I didn't hear you say
Yeah.
that.
61.8.
So in your video, it said that the jail was going to help us grow the community. How does sending $60 million out of the county grow the community?
What do you mean we're sending it out of the county?
Well, you're importing you're importing all these prefab things, so it's not gonna be made here. That money's leaving the community.
Okay.
Are the construction workers local, or are they from out of town?
This is a public bid, so the way this works is that when the construction documents are completed, it's put out on the street, any contractor can bid on the project. Now, they have to be the low bid to be able to get the work,
Sure.
but any contractor can bid on that.
Okay, so over 22 million of it is gonna be just interest on the principal. Where does that money go? Who's financing this?
What do you mean, who's financing that?
Who's giving the money for the project? Who's
It's a general obligation bond, so the way that works is that the county sells bonds, and then they pay back that interest, just like from a bank perspective. So there's investors that then will bid on your borrowing, and then when you get those bids in from Baird, then they bring it to you as the options in regards to how you sell those
And
bonds.
where do those bids typically come from?
Depends. I've had local banks that have done it. I've had those that are outside of Wisconsin do it.
Realistically though, where do you think they'll come from, inside the county?
I don't know. I've had some that are right in the county
Okay.
bid on them.
I'll bet they come from out of the county.
You could be right.
One other question, you mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that anything can be renovated.
Mhm.
I didn't see in any of the slides what the cost would be just to renovate what's already there.
Yeah, so that's the situation that we had on this renovation piece.
You pointed out lots of legitimate complaints about the current building, but I didn't see any $60 million complaints.
So you gotta understand that you're pinning a $60 million number, right? $60 million number. That if this,
That's what,
that if this number right here, because by the time we would renovate this project, and we would have to add over here, because this doesn't solve your problem, and we add this over here and we do all the demo, it's going to be more money than building new. But the point would be, let's say that we came back and said that this number was 20 million. Just say that it's $20 million. We can't compare 20 million and 61, because you're still gonna borrow $20 million. You gotta add interest to that. So we've gotta make sure we're comparing apples to apples. The renovation, you still have to borrow the money and you still have to have interest on it, but the reality is, by the time you renovate this, you do not get to the bed count that you need, you will not meet classifications. You're gonna be forced to build an addition over here, which means we have to demo 2 floors of buildings and then renovate or build them in a new location.
that's fair, but we have the option to send special cases out of the county. We have options to lock fewer people in cages, i.e. put them at home under ankle monitors or something like that. So we don't necessarily the newspaper did a breakdown of who's actually in the jail, and it's not very many people. Certainly not enough to justify a two-story building across the street.
Let's break down your comment.
And Russ County does not have a huge rate of growth, if it grows at all. It might even be in decline as far as population goes.
So, let's break down your
So
comment.
why do we need a jail that's like, what, 3 times the size of the one we have?
No. The thing that we are proposing right now, you currently have a 52-bed jail. The option that we're proposing is a 60-bed single bunk that has the ability to double bunk to 75.
Okay.
So you have to have some growth consideration in that. Now I want to break down your comments. When you talk about ankle monitors or electronic monitoring, how that works with electronic monitoring, just because you have them out on a bracelet doesn't mean that you can't have a bed. You don't need a bed for them. Because what it takes is one event for them to break what their protocol is, and you gotta have a bed for them.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at your population or your ADP, and historically, if you look on the website, historically, your ADP will do this, right? And to be very, very frank with you, across the state, when I deal with ADP, it has to deal with who's in office at the time. When you talked about, let's not lock them up, there are individuals that say, we don't need to put people in jail for X, Y, or Z, and your bed count will go down. The next election will come along, and there is a different decision, and we change the mind. If you are going to invest in something that is going to take care of that situation for you over the foreseeable future, you've got to be able to deal with your historical ADP. You have a 52-bed jail that, so you guys understand, a 52-bed jail, when it's rated capacity of 52 beds,
Could you break down ADP? What is that? I don't know that.
average daily population,
Okay.
okay? Because it fluctuates, right? People are in, somebody asked in one of the meetings about what's the average length of stay. It's really irrelevant, because individuals that come in and go out, they affect your ADP in regards to what your average daily population is annually. That's how you have to evaluate that so that you have proper bed count. Your ADP or your rated capacity on 52 beds has to be 85% of that. And the reason for that is you can't have those full of 52 individuals. The DOC requires that you have 85% of them full. So 15% have to be open. So out of your 52-bed jail, you've got to be able to tie back 15% of that, right? So from that component, we're looking at something that's in the mid to upper 30s in regards to when you start to peak out of your capacity. The housing component that's tied back into that is that the question has been, let's just send them all out of county, right? I've actually got counties that say, we don't even want them in the jail business anymore.
Well, you're swinging your arm saying, let's send them all, but we're talking about a dozen people.
Well, let me explain where I'm headed.
Well, let's tone it down a bit. You're getting all, you're throwing your arms like you got this huge problem.
Here we go.
No,
Okay,
that's
this better?
problem.
This better? The reality is that your average ADP over the course of the last years that we had identified is 40. You've got some years that were higher, you had some years that were lower. But it's in that 38 to 40 area. If you want to say, let's get out of the jail business, right? We don't want to do anything with our jail. We're not going to invest in it. Let's just, I talk to my hands. I'm sorry. I just do.
No, that's fine, but you're exaggerating with your hands.
Is it like my fish story? So, from a 40 perspective, you can go to another county and say, we want to house our individuals out of county. You can. The average cost of that stay, you can find some that are in the 40s. You can find some that are in the 80s. If you have a special case, I've seen some that have paid $1,000 a day. So we did a middle of the road. If you decided you're gonna house 40 inmates out of county, that's gonna cost you just under $1 million just for your out of county expense to pay for the bed. Now, in order to get them there, so what happens from a transport perspective is that these individuals that are under arrest here, now, you will still be required to have all of your jail staff that you currently have. You can't just say, let's shut the door and shut the jail down. Because on a fresh arrest, when the patrol bring in a fresh arrest, you have to have those receiving cells so that you can properly classify them, you can monitor them before you can tell that accepting county what classification and who I'm sending over there, okay? So the cost, here's what your current jail operating cost is. $1,895,000. That's what your cost is for all of your staff, what's cost for your contracted services, meaning what you have for your medical, for your food, all the things that are tied back into your jail operation. If you just,
Wait, just clarify, this in the red, this is currently, this is like 2023 or 2022?
this is your 2024 budget right now, $1,895,000.
Is out of county a projection, or is
Yes.
that what we're paying right now?
This is a projection, okay? I'm giving you the scenario of,
And that's annual,
yes.
okay.
So if I'm gonna take transport,
And it's based on 40 inmates being out of county?
Correct.
Okay.
that means we're not housing anybody here anymore, right?
Right, which wouldn't be the case though, because we do have a jail that we can rent it.
Let me finish. Sure. Okay. So now we've got 40 inmates that are here. The trips that go back and forth, this cost goes into vehicles that would have to be acquired, the staff to be able to get them there. This number has to be in regards to transport. There is no guarantee where you're gonna be able to house these. You may end up going to a neighboring county, you may have to go to a county that's across the state. Medical. This medical side that's in here, these visits are medical requirements for those individuals to go to that medical visit for the transport and for the visit at that location, because the medical doesn't happen at that out-of-county location, they have to be taken to that clinic or that hospital, okay? These are all projections and averages, which means that this would be just over $1.2 million annually if you said we're gonna house them all out. You still have to have the staff here. This is what your impact would be. If you wanted to cut that in half, you can look at what the half would be, but the reality is that you still have this investment in regards to your out-of-county. This number right here, any of this number that's right in here cannot be borrowed for. So you have to put that on your operating expenses. If you did that right now, you would exceed what your operating budget would be, and therefore an operating referendum would come out to you as a taxpayer to say how are we gonna run over our operating budget. This number right here is very close to your 73 cents per $100,000, or $73 per $100,000 of what it would impact you annually. And you've just given another county $1.2 million. So when you're talking about we're spending this money and we're sending it out of county, all of this money is sent out to that adjacent county. Now, you can look at the different scenarios that are tied back into this. If you decide not to build a jail, the DOC will come in and they will reduce, because you have double bunking in your locations, they will reduce what your rated capacity is. That rated capacity will go down to 18. So your 18 individuals is all that you will be able to house, and you gotta be able to manage within that number in regards to those 18. So your staffing component would be tied into this. You would be forced to see these numbers. And I know you say we can check it today, that's not the number, the average is here, that's where that average would end up getting, to your point, operational. Sir, you had a question?
Yeah, so the DOC seems to have a lot of control over this. Why isn't the state putting money out to these counties that need these upgrades?
It's a great question. It's asked multiple times. The reality is that there are codes that have been determined by the state, not just in jails, but you have ADA compliant codes. You don't get state funding for that. There are codes that are required for you to comply with when you build any building, but the state doesn't give you money for that. In the state right now, and I know everybody wants to come down on the DOC, this went into effect in 2014, 10 years ago. This isn't a code that they changed yesterday. So for us to say, why are they dropping the hammer on us now? We've had 10 years to come up with a solution, and now we're just talking about it. So you've got to take that into consideration in regards to what does that look like and what's the requirement that's tied in there. The state is saying you're not compliant with your code. You've got to be able to get that up to code. Yes, sir.
Out of those 40 inmates, are they Russ County residents? Where do they come from? What's their average age? What's the age range? And you mentioned $100,000 property value. What's the average property value in this county?
Let me answer the one that I know, and
Sure.
then I'm going to have the sheriff do the other one. So I believe your average property value is like 173, 750. as your average property value, and obviously some are lower, some are above, that would be your average.
Yep.
So that would be an impact of 126.84 annually and 1057. That information's on the website.
Okay.
Jeff, you wanna answer kind of the,
average age, I don't know that we've actually figured it out, but our discussion, right here, quickly, is we would guess that it would be, high twenties, low thirties, would be average age.
So where do they come from? Are they Russ County residents, or are we getting them from other counties?
Anywhere. Most of what we house are our own. We occasionally, will pick one up from like Price County, who is in as big a desire, or as big a need for space as we are. If we have it and we can meet it within our classification. And again, it falls back to what is our classification? And do we have a cell block that have other people of the same classification that we?
I think what you might be asking is it
people
Russ
we
County
arrest.
residents that are arrested, or is it people
Right,
from other?
Right,
Well,
that's
it
what
could,
I'm
it could be
asking.
anybody. It could be somebody traveling through.
So we
from
don't
another
wanna have a
town.
place that they wanna get here. We wanna have a place where they don't wanna stay.
You're right. So, I should have put some pictures in here. This is not a place that anybody's gonna wanna stay. This is not a place where you're gonna wanna stay, and I think there's.
So what's the average size? You mentioned the,
Well, there's a misnomer about that this is like a spa or a resort. It's not. I mean, you've got a concrete bunk, you've got concrete floors, you've got a steel ceiling, and you've got concrete painted walls. There are no frills in this jail.
That sounds nicer than the college dorm. You said all buildings have a life expectancy. I disagree, but let's use your point. What is life expectancy of a prefab jail?
So, I would say that the jails that we have been working on have ranged anywhere from 35 to 55 years old.
Okay.
Now, it really is determined by not so much structure, but function and design internal. When you're seating some of these ones, like, that are yours, that are like 39 years old, linear jails have been such a complication that those are the elements. We have seen some pods that are older that have been able to deal with the classification elements that are tied into that. So, when you're talking about building infrastructure and building life expectancy, it's a tricky question, because the building will stand structurally, but the county has to invest in air handling equipment, electrical upgrades. All those things will be an ongoing maintenance component that has to be invested in.
Can you bring up your slide with the ADP?
Yeah.
So you say 55 years, and I'm not excellent at math, but if we got out of the jail business, as you say, we're looking at roughly
160.
just like 60
165
to $70 million.
No, this is
Just
annual.
out of county jail.
This is annual right here. So if you're talking 55 years, you're talking 165 million.
Okay, so that's not an either or current jail.
No.
or out of county.
No, this is why I put these together, is that the staff that are here right now have to stay, because there's a requirement that when you have anybody that's in that jail,
Not if
whether
we
it's a
don't have a
small
jail.
booking or a holding area,
So he's-
you have
what
to
is
have
it?
male
They
and
have to
female
stay.
staff, and you have to have
So if I
that
bring
staff
somebody in, they
24/7.
have to have
And
somebody
they
there.
could stay in the current jail that we have now.
Yes.
Since we're gonna be shipping out majority edge cases if they even exist.
Well, here's the thing about, that I want you to understand about out of county. Out of county housing, those counties don't have to take everybody. They don't have to take anybody. So to rely on that is not a real stable, long-range plan, right? Because let's say you get an individual that is just a terrible inmate. You don't want them, you can call around. You're not getting anybody that's gonna take them, and then you have to have a game plan of how you're gonna house them.
How many of those terrible inmates do you get on average?
Per year, like the ones that require a lot of supervision.
The ones that will beat the hell out of you in your narrow hallway.
Multiple, because we deal with a lot of mental health people now.
Okay.
They have no place in the state for mental health people, so they put them in jail. That's not what our staff is supposed to do, but we do our best to take care of them. At one point here, probably less than 4 weeks ago, we had 4 very serious mental health people in the jail at the same time, which took up 4 of our 6, cell blocks. So that really put a crunch on us for that. We could have shipped them. Douglas County will take them, no less than $250 a day.
Okay.
Cause they gotta deal with it, and they don't wanna deal with it. And that's what we said. We may get it at 65, we may get it at $45, but if you've got a troubled inmate, they're gonna charge you for it. Or they're gonna say, we don't want it.
Did you know the answer to annually, how many people?
How many bad inmates do we get annually?
Yeah, like the ones before you.
I don't know what number on it.
I don't
So
have an
it's-
annual number.
It's
Would
hard,
you say it's a large number, like more than a dozen?
It's growing,
Lesser dozen?
it's growing.
It's definitely growing with the mental health issues, and like the sheriff said, those mental health people don't belong in jail, but there's nowhere for them to go.
This is probably off topic, but what do you think the source of the growing mental health issues is?
Way beyond our pay grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta ask the politicians then.
I don't know, there's a lot of factors.
And maybe this is a question for you, when did our jail become out of code?
so 2014, when you talk about classification, I think if you look back on the jail reports, as of 2017, you were not compliant for mixing classification. But as of 2014, you guys were destined to not be able to classify because you have so many limited cell blocks. And what is only compounding that is that the jail population is changing.
How did we get by those last 7 years?
So you've been,
World class.
you have been, marked up on it. And I think it's just run its course, where the DOC has said, I gotta put some teeth in this, because you can't just let me slip by. And it's not just your county, it's happening, the DOC is looking at this, we can't continue to let this slip by.
Sure.
So part, and two, with that, part of the state statute does have accommodations for existing jails prior to that time. From a, like we were talking about the spatial relation piece of that, you can get by with that, and that's okay. Where the complication comes in is the additional management of the classifications, and that's where the DOC begins to step in. It isn't that physically the jail is no longer compliant with that statute by square footages and that. There are accommodations for it, but it's this. Now we have four people who just got booked with, that we have to manage, that have mental health classification issues.
There's another gentleman that has a question.
Can I jump in here
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
mental health and stuff? Because of the changing of times, we contract with a medical company who provides a nurse 15 hours a week and an on-call doctor 24/7. And they have now, this year, dropped the ball on us that says we no longer can go with an LPN nurse, we have to go with an RN nurse. And our cost is going up $44,000 annually this year, which will go up again next year because it goes up every year, just because these nurses and the docs are dealing with this mental health stuff in the jail. So that's another big concern of us is our cost is going up every year, but the levy doesn't go up. So the county, and we do, over this money, because I need more money, Health and Human Services needs more money, all the other departments need more money, but it isn't there. So where do you cut? What do you gotta do to make this happen? But
That's also true for your household budgets in this county.
it's true, I get it.
Sir?
So whether we have, the new jail or the old one, that RN is still gonna be mandated, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so my question is, are the people gonna get to vote on a referendum on this, or is this just gonna be a county board decision?
Well,
We have no say.
I can tell you right now that the county board has the authority to make the decision without a referendum. The county board will have to have that discussion when they go to consider when or if they approve the project. So I can't tell you yes or no, it's a county board decision. But in the state of Wisconsin, and quite frankly, that's why we're having these meetings. Whether you appreciate these meetings or not, I hope you do, because I don't really enjoy doing them.
I do.
Um,
You're doing a great job.
yeah. The reality is that in the state of Wisconsin, the way that it's supposed to work is that you as constituents go to your county board supervisors and talk about these issues, right? I talk to county board members all the time. I can tell you that that doesn't happen a lot. They may get a handful of people that are there. We are encouraging through these meetings that you will talk to them and ask questions and then hopefully have some dialogue in regards to your position on this. Because at the end of the day, I can tell you from a referendum perspective, here's the difficulty with a referendum, is I appreciate all of you coming out here today. I really do. I'm impressed because I did not expect this many of you here. But how many people are in this side of the county that aren't here? That didn't hear everything that we just shared with you?
This is very short.
But take into consideration, we've done this multiple times. It is a small percentage of the population that comes here. And then you're asking them to go to the poll to vote on something, and it's determining the wording of what's tied into that. I could give you a half a dozen different ways to word this question, and it could be received in multiple different ways. The reason that you have elected those county board supervisors is to make those decisions. And I'm gonna tell you right now that every year, those county board supervisors, they approve your budget that is millions of dollars, but that doesn't go to referendum. I want you to think about that, is that those elements come into play as you start to make the decision and the discussion about how does this play out.
Is anyone up here from representing the county, other than law enforcement? Did you guys do a study on how much it would cost just to do renovations on what we have?
We did not do those leaders.
So how do we make a decision here or feel good about a new jail if we don't?
I just told you that in order to renovate that and get to the same deliverable, it's gonna be more money.
Okay. Who are you representing?
The construction manager.
I just rather hear it from the county board.
Why is that?
Because I live with them and the neighbors.
Okay, so they would
And
know
they
what the
don't-
cost of this is?
Their vested interest is different than yours.
I agree with you, I don't think all options are being explored in terms of renovating. Because I don't think any I didn't hear anything about maybe pushing into, the other parts of the building, even to the point where you could maybe get a pod or something. But I also have a crazy thought, and this was just because a very respected community member happened to tell us just a few days ago that he distinctly remembers 40 years ago when our jail was built, that one of the bragging points was that they would be able to easily add another story. So I'm just throwing that out there. I have no idea if that's true. I was just told this by a trusted community member who was here at the time and involved with that project.
Sure.
Just want to throw that out.
We
I
did
have
look at,
a question though, well, go ahead if you're on that.
we did look at remodeling some of the existing buildings. Some things that you gotta take into account that what happens to those departments that are there now, you have to relocate them. So that's additional cost as well. The existing building, you cannot build the jail on, because of the weight loads of that. The existing structure can't handle it. So the comment, and I guess I don't remember that one as far as building another floor onto that. Again, the building codes have changed. You wouldn't be able to do that today. You could build maybe some offices, but as far as the jail goes, it won't.
I want to show you, this is why I wanted to do linear tabular. This is the pod. This is the mass of the size of the pod. This is your jail, one floor of this jail. You see where that doesn't work? I mean, that's a representation of why those quick questions, those answers can be answered very quickly in regards to being able to get an efficient jail design.
So what if we didn't need that many beds? Maybe we don't need that many.
I think that's the component that's tied into this, is that, let me ask you this, would you want to spend millions of dollars and put less beds that are in here and then pay money to a county? You see what I'm saying? Because you wouldn't be able to do both. And that's what's complicated about the approach in regards to what does that look like. If you invest in, and the county board makes a decision to spend millions of dollars, and 5 years from now, they're saying, hey, we're spending money out of county, and we're spending millions of dollars spending out of county, the question would be, what in the world were they thinking 5 years ago? You've got to be able to have a game plan for what that growth looks like over the course of that borrowing that's there.
But there's a lot of people that don't want to lock up young people when our population is decreasing.
Yeah.
This is a question for the sheriff, I think. How much has like year over year, has the jail population increased?
Goes up and down every year. It's not like,
But over the last, what do we look at, 30 years? It's been the slow increase, and that's where we come up with this number, yes.
So,
But I wanna,
I
wanna,
have looked back over the
Okay.
count, but I don't see an increase.
what happens with COVID, I want you to look at what COVID, across the board, I'm not talking just Rusk County, in the state of Wisconsin,
Well, I've looked back.
COVID, all of these
Many more years than
populations,
COVID.
all these populations go, right? And then they came back up. Now, what you guys saw is you saw something that was an increase, and then you saw a dive, and what you're watching across the board is you're seeing an increase. And when we talk about population, the population in a county doesn't necessarily mean what your population is in the jail. They're two different things. You can't take the number of residents that are in there and say that there's a direct correlation. Granted, bigger counties have bigger jails, I get that, but it's not a direct correlation to say we have a declining county because, or a declining population, that we should have a declining jail. Society and those events that happen, we've already heard, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a resident from Rusk County that has come in and is under arrest. That doesn't correlate.
Yeah, but I also don't wanna be in the jail business where we import prisoners for profit.
And that's part of what we were projecting here. That's why we looked at 60 or 75, so that you're not oversizing this to be able to bring individuals in. It's not sized that way.
It looks oversized.
Opinion.
It's
I
oversized.
wanna jump back here a little bit. We talked about going up. If we add another story to our jail, we now add 3 more employees, a minimum.
I had a question about that too, because what was it?
$500,000 per
Wow.
person. Yeah, I was curious about that too. How does it cost $500,000?
So you gotta understand that that individual, you have one post equates to almost 5 positions. Because as you work 24/7, it's not a 40 and we're done. You gotta cover weekends, you gotta cover holidays. So each one of those posts equate to 5 individuals. And you're paying salary and benefits that are tied back into that. And that's the component that's tied back into that. I mean, each county is different. You guys are on the lower end at $500,000. I got some counties that it's $750,000. Yours is $500,000. Oh,
Well, there again, though, that's people who live in the community and spend their money in the community.
But I just brought that back up, so you understand why we're not looking at going up, because we don't wanna add staff. With this here, we can do it with the current staff that we have, without increasing staff at this point.
So I have a question back.
What does the bridge over minor cost?
We have about a $3 million price tag on that. Now, what's tied into that is foundations. It all has to be detention grade, in regards to the components that are tied into that connection that's there. Yeah.
You mentioned Price County. Is there something preventing the counties getting together that have very little population, consolidating a prison for 3 or 4 counties instead of everybody having their own superstructures in every little county?
So that currently does not exist in the state of Wisconsin.
Well, maybe it should. Maybe
Well,
that
but-
should be looked into.
So let's talk about, you want to cover it?
Well, I just know that, Pepin and Buffalo are having this discussion and kind of move forward, and now it's kind of going back this way, because there's always that, my county, your county, you know, this school coming together, you
Same
have
thing,
that,
yeah.
and that's what makes it
Here-
difficult.
It's a waste.
But
It's a
it
waste
is,
of money.
right, but it has not happened in the state of Wisconsin.
Here's what complicates matters. Let's say that you and Price decide on that. Who's paying for it and who's paying rent?
I mean, that could be figured out.
But that's where a lot of this ends up becoming
Political,
and it doesn't get solved.
right? That's just my 2 cents.
No, it's a good question, it really is.
We had a school consolidation with Barron County, Chautauqua, it's working great. I think it could work with prisons.
Well, it's a different animal.
We can be creative about it.
Yeah, I got a question, cause I'm ignorant on the thing, but what's the ratio of male to female? And if there's any difference in the structure for male or female?
There is no difference in the structure.
Probably 80-20.
Yeah. They're 80-20. I would say that across the state, what I've seen is that 1/3 of the population is female and 2/3 is male.
I can tell you, when I started almost 26 years ago, if you had a female in jail, That was a big deal. Because we didn't have female jailers then.
Right.
We had what we call a matron who would come and sit as long as that female was there, and was usually over the night till they went to court and got sent on their way. But that just continues to increase anymore. So,
We talked about average, population. George, you keep that up for 1 year?
No, I don't believe that. It was from 52.
And that's what the current jail is right now.
No, that's way back. Years ago. Average is 52.
Other questions?
I have-
Sorry, it's so hot in here. Yeah, go ahead.
Appraisal of brand new construction, you started from a clear piece of property. Has that been?
So we did talk about a greenfield site. Greenfield site, at the time when we put an estimate to it, was about the same price as what you have here. But what you run into is when you park that jail somewhere else, the transport costs will go up. Because you've got to transport, and then there's a liability that's tied into that.
Well, how about if it was moved upon a mile?
No, that's the same thing. You would still have transport in regards to the components that would be tied there.
But did they do any cost projection?
Yes, it was about $39 million.
There's probably something to move it and look into, because it put some, keep adding on to this piece of green elephant there. Wouldn't it be good to put something up there that these
It's an interesting topic, because I have some counties where they don't want any of the government to leave the downtown because they think that it affects the flow and the traffic down there. They want the traffic downtown, so it's unique that you would say you want to move it out.
Well, just say if it was moved out by the county shop,
Understood.
and then you'd have all kinds of parking around the new building, something that the future kids could be proud of. Not keep adding on to a joke pile.
Sure. Question back there?
I was just gonna mention the same thing.
Okay.
What he did.
Sir?
Yeah, you've got a jail that you're just finishing in Wood County, am I correct? Okay, and what about this $55 million jail that you're proposing for Washburn?
It's actually $46 million.
You look, it says 55.
Well, what you're hearing and what is being talked about are two different things.
Okay, and
But what we heard regarding the cost of bars and what it will actually be will be a different thing too.
No.
no cost overrun provision in there?
Well, right now, we have the components tied in with what that bid would be in this year. If you guys decide that you're gonna delay this a year or two, I showed you the inflation components that are tied there. It's only gonna go up.
To be fair though, we are at the peak of the economic cycle. Inflation is unsustainable
You-
and it's finished.
I'm gonna tell you right now that over the course of the last 12 months, everybody's been telling me that the prices will come down. They have not. They have continued to go up.
I've heard from used car salesmen that prices are gonna continue going up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I wanna come up here a ways. I'm kinda working for the people who don't have a lot of money. And what we've got today, that's not been mentioned at all. And Russ County is one of the worst ones. The people, they're having trouble to buy gas, food, taxes, the heat, the electric, all the other stuff. They can't buy a decent car or whatever, and they're never gonna be able to buy a home. And I myself live in Bruce. We're over 200 years there, right there. And, let's see here. My taxes went up, because I got a decent house. And, they're after me a lot. There's three things. I'm on my third $10,000 for what they put in there. Bruce is down out like that, and us being the first people in there for over 200 years, I hate to say this, but that thing is on to nothing. We got two places that got beer, and I don't drink beer, and, so forth. And, so I wanna know about how them people are gonna be coming out on this thing here. I know you guys aren't gonna like it, and I was an hour and a half here for this, listening to this, I could care less. I've never been in the jail, and I'm not gonna be there. And none of our people have, because we're good people, and I know him quite well. And there's stuff here that they're doing besides this thing. Every week, it seems like Ladysmith is doing something more. Now here, there's this one, I brought these, this one here, every week, there's something there going on. This is the city council okay's plan to add more housing units. I built my own home, completely. I'm a tool and die maker. And a mechanical engineer. And I can do things like that, but a lot of these people can't. And these are bad, bad times, especially here. We have a hell of a lot of people here that are on, well, they're on the
Snap.
the Tuya. But this is, yes, I'm a first class tool die maker. I was at Honeywell 8 years. I mean, when we were making stuff for Vietnam, and my brother was badly wounded there and all that, but that's all that. But it seems like every week they're doing something different. The guys down there, downtown, they're gonna have all new seats over there. They gotta put their butt on some new seats. That's gonna cost $43,000. Why do they have to do that now?
Because I'm not sure what's happening with the city, sir. I'm not sure what's happening with the city. I appreciate the comment though.
Yeah, and I wasn't looking at that for an hour and a half because, like I say, I'm a tool and die maker, and I have another thing.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, but I wanna know, and here's what I wanna know at the end. I would like to have these people vote tonight, if they will.
A show of hands?
Just asking it, but I know what I would do. It's gonna be a no for me.
Appreciate it. Other questions? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Going back to the Wold,
Yep.
and I believe they had,
Well said.
they had suggested the wraparound the front.
Yep.
What was the capacity that they recommend, that would have been the result of that plan? And what was the cost?
And my 5-year apprenticeship, and all of that.
65 bed?
I don't recall it ever being a
Blueprint
blueprint of a bed.
Okay, yeah, so that's
It was
the
just the
element.
size of a building, that's all we ever had.
All it was conceptual in nature, there was no bed count, it was just a location of where it could be. And that's why when we came in and did the evaluation of where that space would go, it would only accommodate the linear jail with what they had represented. And that's why we showed what this pod configuration would be in that same location of what they had proposed.
What was the cost of that?
They had $26 million. Other questions?
I have a question about the DOC again.
Yep.
If what you said they had provisions for having people housed there that sort of bend the rules or somehow, you implied.
No, what Kyle was saying is that when the code changed,
Yeah.
the building as it was constructed was compliant with the code in which it was built. But now if we touch that from a renovation perspective, we have to bring it up to its current code.
So if we don't touch it, we don't have to worry about these new codes, correct?
You don't have to worry about the size of the cell, but the classification code that you currently are not meeting, you will still not be meeting that.
And if you violate that by throwing somebody in a cell with somebody else, you can't do that. Will you go to jail or what happens? What, I'm serious.
But it opens the liability of the county being sued or something.
Who's gonna sue the county?
It happens daily.
I'm not, is the DOC gonna sue the county? Who sues?
So what you're going to see, what I suggested is that if there is nothing done, your bed count will be reduced. Because you're double bunking, the capacity of your jail will be significantly reduced by over half. That will happen immediately, okay? So now you have to deal with, you already are not compliant with classification, it's only going to get worse. And the components that are tied back into that, if that individual, when you talk about the suing, what he's talking about is somebody is harmed, injured, while they're in the custody of that jail.
And you got people who make a living doing that to the rest of us.
Sir, did you have a question?
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Did you have a question? Oh, you had a question, yep.
Yeah, I wanna say to you about that thing that goes over, Minor Avenue. Why don't you just forget that 30,000, because the 30 is gonna be 50, I know that. And, they can walk over there. What's wrong with that?
No, so the liability is.
Well, I have to walk.
So the liability, well, they're still walking,
Yeah,
they're just not out in the public eye, so.
I am in the public, sir. I have 2 or 3 things that I'm working on, that I work. I have a tool thing, where I do work on that, and I got a couple of other places. I brought a lot of stuff in to Bruce when I come back here, when I come back from this place.
Sure, appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but they can take their little feet and go out like I do when I go to the car or the whatever, and, what's wrong with going across the street?
There's huge liability and exposure. You gotta understand the risk that's tied into that.
Yeah, okay,
Other questions?
I could get hit there too.
Yes, sir.
Back, when the mining company was here, they said there's someplace in this peninsula, from the dam down here, up in past the courthouse, where there's a lot of mineral. And, talk about where you're gonna get the money from, maybe don't forget the beef and corn mill.
Thanks for the comment, sir. Did you have a comment?
She had one.
Oh, go ahead.
I would, invite you guys to go, when you're going out of town tonight, to go down Fifth Street to 3795. You guys know, probably one of the inmates in your jail lives at that address, and he has been in and out of the jail for years. Prior to that, I had to live next door to, they're not around anymore, so I'll mention names, Al Dinette's. So I have lived 27 years next door to Riff Raff. And you're asking me to pay extra on my taxes to support people who don't wanna work, who don't pay their bills. His water's been turned off. I want you to go by there tonight. This is what I've had to live next to for 27 years. And you're asking me to pay more taxes? Forget it. I don't wanna do it. I don't wanna support people who do not support themselves. I have to go through in my garden every spring and pick up the pieces of the roofing coming off that guy's house. I have had to do that for the last 5 years. And I keep up my property, I pay my taxes, I pay my bills. I think we're all feeling the same way. We would rather add a few, whatever it needs, downscale this jail, because I'm gonna tell you, these people, they're working the system. This guy who's my neighbor, who's in your jail right now, he knows how to work the system. I wrote a letter to the editor on March 13th. My name is Sharon Willis. And in the same issue of that paper,
I believe it was March 4th, I could be wrong about the date, but in the police log, there was a guy that came into the jail who was making a commotion, trying to get himself into the jail by creating a disturbance, because he was probably figuring he would get 3 squares and a shower. Well, the rest of us have to work. Now, I'm retired, but I'm gonna tell you, all my neighbors, except him, they go to work, they pay their taxes, they're really good neighbors. But I am really tired of the guy at 3795, and I want you guys to go by that property tonight and ask in the little white house, which is my house, to the south of that property, if I go to sell that, I'm gonna take a hit because of what his place looks like. And yet you're asking me to pay taxes on that and support these people? They don't wanna work and they know how to do the system. Sorry, I'm against it. And I don't think county board, let's give the county board a year to really look at some other creative ways of either combining with Price County or adding or doing the green thing. Is that you, Norm? Yeah, hi. You know, let's look at some options. We don't have to do this right away. And I know I don't have a vote on this. I knew this for a long time. I did not have a vote. And I have never been really a political person. The last time I got politicized is when the idiots down in Madison wanted to put a nuclear waste dump in the Chequamegon Forest. I got active. And I get emotional, but I'm tired. I was told when I lived next door to Danette's, he was the former resident there, I was trying to get him, you know, to fix his property up. He had like 6 cars. He didn't mow his grass. His kids were in and out of jail, you know Josh. And I was told by the county that if there were no minor children in the house, I didn't have any options. So the property stood vacant for a few years, and then my new neighbor moved in, and with all the promises that he makes, because he's a big, you know, he's a con man. And it's worse than ever.
I appreciate your comment.
Please go by 3795. You guys know.
But I appreciate the comment. I want you to understand, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but one of the things from the jail perspective is that you're not just building it for your neighbor, you're building it for the control of what happens that isn't right in society, right? And one of the things that will be in this jail that you don't have in your current jail is programming space. And what that means is there's actually classroom space and programs that can be brought in to help correct those. Just hear me out. I'm not saying that it's gonna help your neighbor.
But I'm gonna tell you right now, that these people don't want
I understand that.
They do not wanna be programmed, they don't wanna be taught anything, they just wanna get, what they think is coming to them, and that's just a free ride.
I understand.
And the rest of us people in this room, I'll bet you 98% of us are gonna be paying taxes for those kinds of people, and I'm against it.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Okay, well.
This gentleman had asked a question before. He had asked for a show of hands, and I'd like to ask for a show of hands of who would vote if we had a vote in a referendum. Who in this room would vote for this jail?
Sure, go ahead.
Show of hands. Who would vote for it?
Before that, we don't exactly know what we're voting on.
We don't know.
The alternative is to refurbish what we have, and we don't know the true cost of that.
Let's find out then.
Yeah.
Who would vote for the jail?
Nobody would.
I don't think that's a fair
unanswered
question
questions.
right
Yeah.
now, to put everybody on the spot to decide right now.
I understand the reason for it, but the.
I can't hardly afford one of them.
Okay, hold on.
Let's stay focused here. I understand the reason for the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the position of all of you, but more times than not, the individuals that come here aren't for the jail, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be here, right? So the reality is that what I would encourage is that based on what you've heard is talk to your supervisors about your concerns, because as they move forward with decisions, they can bring them to the table and we can evaluate them in regards to other possible solutions that are tied in there. There's some great suggestions here tonight. Encourage you to be able to do that. The website gives you an opportunity. If you go to the last page on the website, you can get in there and you can make those comments and get them to us. All of those will be shared with the county board. We will keep track of all of them, and we will let the county board know about those questions and comments that are made by you, the taxpayers, when we present the summary of these meetings to the board. That's the intention of being able to get you to communicate. Encourage you to do that. And understand every one of your situations are different. So, I appreciate it.
My only comment was, if they close the jail, like everybody seems to wanna ship everybody out, the county cannot bond that money, the extra money, where are they gonna get it? Without raising our taxes.
The only way it would be raising taxes, and that's where.
So why don't, if we're gonna raise our taxes $73, we might as well build a jail.
Yeah. If you don't do it, you will be raising your taxes.
Yeah, cause you can't bond out that money.
Correct.
But nobody seems to say that.
Correct.
The county board should say. They should tell us. There's county board members here.
Well,
and they should say.
I did tell you
Where are
that.
we gonna get the extra money?
I did tell you that at the end there, yeah. That was the summary page there.
But what if it's not 40 people, and what if it
Yeah,
only
our
costs
taxes
half
aren't being
that
raised
much
right
as
now.
now?
60 people.
Well, then it would be one.
Yeah. So you wouldn't take the gamble? Are you a good gambler?
Hang on, you got a question?
I'm not.
Okay, so I have a question. You guys talked about the DOC, and so what happens if county board, county decides to do nothing with the existing jail, build a new jail? What does that do to our limit on inmates?
They're gonna take away our double bunking and put us down to about 18 people.
So 18 beds.
So to be at is that at 85% or is that max capacity at that time?
That's max, so
So-
85 that's about 12.
So we'll have about room for 12, everybody else will have to be shipped out. I do not have the staff right now, nor the vehicles to transport multiple people daily back and forth to whatever county we happen to go to, because everybody that's in jail has a right to come to every court hearing, every medical, everything, and when you ship them out to another county, that other county doesn't pick that up. You're paying for a bed and a hot meal for that person. If they need to go to the clinic, we go get them, take them, whatever clinic it is, take them back and then come back. That's all an expense on top of, that's this here, the transport and the medical.
And that daily housing cost,
And then the housing cost.
can that vary, or is there?
It's all gonna depend on the number of people you have.
So there's not like a state standard that says each jail can only charge so much.
Nope, that's whatever the jail wants to charge. Like I said, Douglas County, I've heard the $1,000 a day for an inmate up there. I don't know who it was or what the inmate was. But they have the staffing and the facility to handle that, and they'll take them.
Well, I'll go
Their
tell
staff
them,
don't
I'm not
like the
voting for
bosses
it.
because they take them, because they gotta deal with them, but they're making money on
They should do
it.
like New York, let them all go.
Say Karen County knows that you all of a sudden have 15 inmates that you need to house, and
But
could charge you $100 a day, or $150.
they could, but we wouldn't go there for that, but there's no guarantee that Barron County could take all 15.
Sure.
We may have 3 here and 3 in Chippewa and 4 in Eau Claire. It's all dependent, and that's all more transports, it takes time, it's a cost, and yes, ma'am.
Just pointing out another cost though that we haven't heard is like the maintenance, we're adding, if we'd be adding all that square footage, that's a lot more building. I know as a school board member, we had to go to school because we couldn't, manage, we couldn't afford to keep maintaining all those buildings. And the other thing that, there was another thing cost-wise that I thought wasn't quite covered. Oh, I know, like in the new, if we got the proposed plan, would any staff have to be added? So we would keep our staff exactly the same? Okay, I never heard that exactly, so thank you, Pat.
Do you have an estimate for the new buildings, annual cost to build it?
It typically, if you're talking utilities, it's anywhere from $1.50 to $2 a square foot. From a maintenance perspective, in regards to the maintenance side, I don't know what the maintenance staff's capacity is right now, but sometimes I see that they do a half of an FTE based on what that new building is, because you don't need initial maintenance. It's more PMs, preventative maintenance that goes tied into that. As far as cleaning of the jail, I have seen where that is done by actually jail officers, correctional officers, so it wouldn't be.
Right now, our staff does all the cleaning in the jail.
You can have inmate workers that do cleaning as well, so there's different ways to go about it. Yep, saw two hands back there?
Yeah, it's for Jeff. I know Jeff quite well. How many, cops will you have to put on if they go up to that 75 or whatever they go up to?
None.
None?
No, the staffing can handle all the way up to that 75 bed. The same
Really?
staff, and that's because of the central location to be able to watch. There's the one person that has visual on them all the time, and then the other two people are doing the other job that need to be done.
And I've known Jeff for a long time. He lived up near me when he was a little guy.
That was a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
Thanks, Kurt.
Yes, it
Do you have a
was.
question sir, do you have a question in the back?
I was just gonna say, Jeff, when you transport a prisoner, how many officers do you need to, is it 2 or 3 or?
If it's one, usually one inmate, but if it's two or more, it's two at a minimum of 2.
So you're tying up at least.
Even if we transport one inmate one way 4 hours or more, that's 2
It's 2.
deputies.
Yeah, okay.
So if we have to
So
go
you're
home.
tying up.
And we don't have the staffing to do that.
Right.
When you say you won't need any more staff, that's only if you continue to have jailer dispatchers classified as a single
Correct.
classification.
Correct.
If you separate dispatch from jailers, then you would need an.
That would change things, yes.
And that's been something.
It's something that we'd like to have
that
done.
you would like to do, but.
There's a lot of things I'd like, but.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm married too, I
All right, I know we're coming up on 2 hours. I appreciate everybody. Oh, did you have a comment? Oh, sorry.
Maybe, it's
Yep.
a really dumb question, because I don't know anything about this.
There's no
but,
dumb questions. So.
On the financing part, say you issue bonds, is that how this would work? At a certain percent, and say the interest rate went down
Yep.
because of deflation. Is that locked into the original rate, or can it be?
It can be refinanced. Yep. A lot of counties did that when the seller numbers put on.
I'm sorry, one more technicality on the numbers too, but the 73 cents stayed per
Yep.
thousand,
Yep, per thousand.
volume. Did that include the financing?
Yes.
I figured, but.
Okay, we will, yep.
I got one question.
Yep.
I think that most of these jail meetings, I live in Sheldon, and I come here to see the comments. We gotta look to the future here, and I wanna ask Jeff, we're talking about housing prisoners out. Is the capacity out there now, but if 5 years down the road, what happens if we have no place to take these persons?
Correct.
Then we're gonna have to take them somewhere, and the rates might go up, so long-term solution is
And
not.
you may have to go farther and farther.
Farther
to get to
or
that.
more costs, so our cost how the coming costs could really escalate in years, so. I've lived in the county all my life, I've paid taxes, and I think I'd like to see things built in our county, and let's do it, so that's,
Appreciate it.
And I wanna say, what I pay in taxes, I've been paying taxes for 60 years. I wanna protect my police officers, I'd like to see a jail. I'd rather see those criminals or those juveniles, we might call them, in jail than around my house at night, so, and I wanna support the county.
Appreciate the comment. Yep.
I have a question here. How much of the of the damage to that building was caused by, the current jail was caused by the tornado that went ripping through years ago?
There's some, I can't answer that question because I'm not a contractor or whatever to be able to say how much damage there is, but it's obvious there was some, so.
Okay, let's wrap it up. I appreciate everybody coming here tonight. Again, I appreciate you being respectful. Comments that were made were great questions. We are doing this again tomorrow night in Hawkins, and then we'll be in Ladysmith on Friday night.
Yeah, I almost took it on.